He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. When this program's over, 9 p.m. Eastern, the State of the Union speech by our great president. Over 70 members, Democrats, of the House of Representatives said they will boycott. It's about a third of them. A bunch of Democrat senators said the same thing. You know, if it were the United Nations and one of these Islamist Nazis or Marxists were giving a speech, they'd sit in their seats with their eyes wide open, taking notes. Taking notes. This is a party that accepts no traditions or customs. None. You think Republicans wanted to sit there when Obama was president or when Biden was president and listen to their crap? But the vast majority of them did. Maybe there were a couple exceptions, but certainly not 1/3 of them. Now, this Democrat Party wants to burn down the system. Open borders, no deportations, illegal aliens treated as citizens, no voter ID, destroy the Supreme Court. You know, they attacked the president for what he said about the court and the justices. But not once has he proposed increasing the number of seats so he can appoint more justices. Not once. And yet he comes under withering attack, even from elements at National Review and so forth. How dare you speak about a justice that way? Yeah, right, okay. Like they're kings or queens or something. But they're not. We've got a real problem. We've got this Mondami in New York City. Cops are pelted with snowballs the other day. It's on video. I'm sure you've seen it. He says it's just a snowball fight. Nobody's going to be prosecuted. That's called assault. Assault. And he was at a mosque in Queens on Friday where the imam called for killing of infidels at one point, but he likes that mosque because he's an Islamist. That's what he is. That's why Qatar supported him and literally supported his mother. And then we have people like Candace Owens, the devil in a dress. Unless she's wearing pants. The things she has said about Erica Kirk are beyond belief. Beyond belief. Putting out now a multi-part series trashing her. The fact is, she doesn't hold a candle to Erica Kirk in terms of class and morality and faith. And then we have Tucker Carlson in Saudi Arabia with his anti-Israel, anti-Semitism obsession and propaganda in a foreign country, in Saudi Arabia, trashing our ambassador, trashing our president's foreign policy. I think people need to understand that Tucker Carlson is stabbing Donald Trump in the back repeatedly, relentlessly, and doing it overseas. In Qatar, in Saudi Arabia. Here we are on the precipice of a likely war with Iran, and he's in the Middle East giving aid and comfort to the enemy. He has defended Sharia law. He's defended Islam. He's attacked Christians. He's attacked Jews. This is a bad, evil bastard, this guy. Stupid as they come. A bad, bad guy. And the media, like Politico. U.S. ambassador causes uproar by claiming Israel has the right to much of the Middle East. That's not what he did. Politico lies and libels. And they're not the only one. The rest of the media did it too. You want to know why? Because Tucker Carlson is an obsessed leaker. He works with the left-wing media. He did when he was at Fox. He did from the Daily Caller. He tells you one thing, America, and does another. He trashes the press while he uses the press. So he plants these stories with Politico, a woman by the name of Felicia Schwartz, who's a fraud and a phony and a fool. She pulled that crap on me this past June. She's fed a line and she regurgitates it. But so did the Washington Compost. And so did most of the rest of the media. And Carlson creates a little foreign policy drama where our government has to step in and say, no, that's not what the ambassador said. He doesn't believe in a fair fight. He doesn't believe in a real debate with facts. That's why I basically told him to go to hell. That, and he trashed my family. I don't debate with people who trash my family and promote Hitler and Jew hatred and Christian hatred. There's nothing to debate. What is to discuss? They need to be crushed some way, somehow. And there he is. He's a traitor. My video podcast today, I elaborate on this at great length. I explain about Benedict Arnold. I explain about Father Coughlin. And I explain that Carlson's worse. And you can get it today, fresh, off of Rumble and YouTube, Liberty's Voice. And I encourage you to listen to it and to spread it, as I encourage you to continue to listen to this program and let people know about it on radio. State of the Union. President's done some fantastic things for this country, not some many, as a matter of fact. On the economy, which I hope he'll discuss, I got to believe he will. On immigration, on trying to confront Jew hatred and Christian hatred. He's got a tremendous record. And imagine if the Democrat Party were a moderate party and would give him a break and get the hell off his back. But that's not what they are. They would like to destroy the economy. They would like to destroy citizenship and our national sovereignty. They would like to do all these things, so you turn to them and elect them. Then they change the way this government works so they never lose again. That's what they did in California. That's what they did in New York. You got a horrendous governor in New York. You've got a horrendous governor in most of these states, these blue states. And they all been radicalized. They all know that's where the power is. If they want to be taken quote-unquote seriously, that's where they need to go. Now, Tucker Carlson was actually on Saudi state-owned TV. Now, I want you folks all over the country, central Pennsylvania especially, people who worked at the Pentagon on 9/11, people who were in the Twin Towers that are no longer there on 9/11. Saudi Arabia was behind 9/11 in the slaughter of Americans. The greatest act of terrorism ever against the United States of America. The greatest slaughter of Americans ever in the United States of America. And he's over there giving a speech on state-owned Saudi TV, trashing our president's foreign policy, trashing the Prime Minister of Israel, trashing Jews. That's not normal, is it, America? And the media keeps calling him conservative, far-right American pundit. He's not conservative. His economic policies are much closer to Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders than they are to Milton Friedman or von Mises. That's the truth. I dug deeply into this video podcast, so I encourage you to take a look. And you'll learn a lot about Benedict Arnold that you didn't know. You'll learn a lot about Father Coughlin that you didn't know. And you'll learn about a lot about Tucker Carlson that you didn't know. And yes, this is relevant to what goes on in this country. Very relevant. Tucker Carlson's father was a great patriot. His name was Richard Carlson. He worked in the Reagan administration. He was a Democrat. He was a neocon, a moderate. I want you to hear what he said. Joel Mulberry, good man, Christian, evangelical, as I recall, could be Catholic, I apologize, and worked with Richard Carlson for many years. And I played this for you some time ago, but he linked to it. It's very important. Listen to this, cut 17. This is Tucker Carlson's father. Go.
We have a moderate Muslim speaking program where we send people out to appear on college campuses or to be in the media and so on who represent moderate Islam, the majority of Islamists who are perfectly good citizens and who don't follow radical Islam, which we consider an enemy. Radical Islam is clearly an enemy of the United States and of the West.
As you know, there have been articles written that accuse you all, I don't know if it's accusation, but it says it's a pro-Zionist group, not really interested in terrorism, but more interested in Zionism.
No, well, I'd say consider the source. They come from the people who use the word Zionist a lot.
The American Conservative is one of them, Pat Buchanan's publication.
Well, okay, all right, I didn't know. Oh, I remember that article, actually. Actually, it was not uncomplimentary in some ways.
No, and I didn't mean it as an accusation, but they said that was the foundation and the reason that a lot of Jewish philanthropists funded this thing in the first place.
That's not necessarily true, but we run a program for college students and we do it at the University of Tel Aviv and Tel Aviv University, but we chose Israel because Israel is a country under siege, and it's a democracy in a part of the world where there are no democracies, and it's under constant irregular terrorist attack and threat. So it seemed like a logical place. If you're going to study certain diseases, you might go to Africa. And in the case of terrorism, going to Israel is a good place to go. That may be what's stuck in their craw. I don't know.
I don't even know it's a craw, but one of the things you find interesting is that these organizations often have a lot of the same people on it. But the reason I ask you that is,
for sure,
where does this strong motivation come from for these organizations? And I know you've seen people give money. Why do they give money to make these things happen? What do they want out of it?
Well, I think in the case of the people on our board, they ask for nothing. And, we have our board of advisors, and we do have Democrats. It's not all on the right. We have Donna Brazile is one of them. Chuck Schumer's another one. Donna Brazile, whose foreign policy views are pretty damn sensible.
Joseph Lieberman.
In my view, yeah, Joe Lieberman. I mean, they're...
Louis Freeh, Newt Gingrich.
Yes.
Gary Bauer, Bill Kristol.
Yep.
Dick Lamb, former governor of
and there are differences between those people. How they stand on abortion, how they stand on other issues, I don't know. I could guess it. Some of it, there's no unanimity of opinion. But I think all of them are public-spirited people. I know most of those people who mentioned Louis Freeh, I know really well. They are enormously interested in what happens to America, and they're big defenders of democracy, and I think that's the reason they do it. They get nothing out of it. All they do is get put upon in one form or another. You know lots of people like that. They are genuinely, honestly motivated.
The Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, he was chairman. This group comes under withering attack from his son or sons and others as a front for the Jews in Israel. Now, his father obviously wasn't Jewish or Israeli, and he worked in the Reagan administration. His father was a very decent man. I met him twice, and he couldn't have been nicer. He could not have been nicer. And let me suggest that his father would be appalled at the things this son is saying within Qatar or Saudi Arabia or in his little hideout in Maine. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Tommy Robinson is a remarkable and brave man from Britain. He's in the United States to warn we, the American people, that what happened in Britain and is still happening in Britain is now happening in the United States of America. He's a citizen journalist. He's an author. He's a free speech activist. They threw him in jail for, what was it, like 7 months, Mr. Producer? He will be on this program in hour 3, hopefully at the top of the hour. Apparently, the members of Parliament would never meet with him, but he's met with at least about 40 members of the House of Representatives and the Senate. He'll talk to us. I want you to hear what he has to say, because I can tell you right now, New York City is being Islamified. This is happening all over the country. We're a minority, but a group of segregated, concentrated Islamists, led by imams and others, are taking over towns and cities. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Denali, the Great One.
The Great One.
And you can call in now, 877-381-3811.
There's a ton of leaking going on against the president as commander-in-chief and his ability to make decisions about war and peace. There are elements in the administration that are violating federal law, the Espionage Act, who have access to or participate in discussions with intelligence agencies and the Pentagon and so forth, and then turn to outlets like Axios, which is a left-wing outlet, and Barack Ravid, who is a radical leftist, well known to be. They turn to outlets like Politico, the Washington Post, and beyond, and they tried to influence the outcome of the president's decision by leaking against the president. By leaking against the president. You know, I worked for several cabinet members in my lifetime, and I was involved in matters at the Department of Justice you wouldn't believe. National security, intelligence matters, terrorist matters, criminal matters. I never, ever had an urge to contact anybody in the media. And you know what's funny? As chief of staff, they would contact me. And I remember one of them from the Washington Post said to me, if you'll become a source, you don't have to be a regular source, I'll make sure you're protected. Listen to this, Rich. I never told you. You're protected and, on occasion, celebrated. And I hung up on her. I think they do the same thing with Supreme Court justices when you see some of them moving from conservative to more liberal. But nonetheless, I believe the isolationists in this administration, and there are too many, they are there not to serve the country, not to serve the president, not to serve we the people, but to serve their own ideology and agenda. And so they are sabotaging him as I speak. The president himself put out a statement yesterday making clear that these stories in the so-called news media are fake. They're fake. And the president said, if we decide to take military action, I prefer a deal, but if we take military action, there won't be half measures. Pinpricks. And no, the head of the Joint Chiefs, General Kane, Raising Kane, has not told me that if a war begins, it'll be difficult for the United States to win. That's not what he has said, and that's not what he believes, and that's not what I, as President of the United States, believe. So all of this leaking is taking place. I have a feeling I know who they are, one or two of them. But since I don't know as a evidentiary fact, I can't say it. But I have a pretty strong hunch. And the president's being undermined. He's being sabotaged. The president is, his foreign policy is, the United States military, our brave men and women in the military, they're being undermined by these isolationist, sort of neo-fascist elements within the administration who work hand in glove with the Marxists and the Islamists, with the Tucker Carlson types. Here's Caroline Levitt outside the White House today. Cut one, go.
President Trump's first option is always diplomacy, but as he has shown, he is willing to use the lethal force of the United States military if necessary. So it's always, the president is always the final decision maker around here. And I've seen a lot of sensationalist reporting over the past day that is just completely untrue. And anyone speculating to the media, hiding behind an anonymous source, pretending to know what President Trump is thinking or a decision he will make with respect to action against Iran has no idea what they're talking about.
But they have every idea about what they're doing. It is a strategy. And it's not by mistake. And I started to post them on my social sites as they were leaking to Axios, to the news side of the Wall Street Journal, to the Washington Post, to Politico. And I started to post them. I counted 3 or 4 right away. And so it is a systematic sabotage campaign by isolationists working with the left-wing media and news organizations to undermine the president, to pressure the president, and to create a juggernaut of opposition to what the president might do. Now think about that. These are people who are in the know about what's being discussed. They're not in the know about what the president will actually do. And it was so bad yesterday, and there were so many of these phony articles, that the president himself took to Truth Social and posted what he posted, which is basically what Caroline Levitt was saying today. The same things happened to our wonderful ambassador to Israel. He's a great man, Mike Huckabee. He's a decent man, a man of great faith, as honorable as they come. And so when they're attacking him, you know how bad it is. How bad it is. And I don't know, what do I have to, every time I mention his name, mention that my stepson works for him? We're proud of him. We're proud of Huckabee. We're proud of what they're doing. Working as loyal appointees of the President of the United States, carrying out his policies. You see, the great difference between Donald Trump, and there's many, and a person, a reprobate like Tucker Carlson, people say to me, yeah, but, you know, Trump likes Qatar and supports Qatar. Look, I don't agree with that. But here's the big difference. Donald Trump is the best friend Israel's ever had since its founding in 1948. The provision of weapons, support for the prime minister, they're very close, he and Netanyahu, despite the leaks by these same saboteurs and isolationists, the neo-fascists, if you will. So he doesn't say, I support Qatar against Israel. That's not how his mind works. That's not his belief system. That is Carlson and his ilk and the other anti-Semites. They support Islam and Sharia law against Christianity and Judaism. They pretend they don't, but that's their take. And they trash our country. They stab the president in the back. They're undermining us, even in the face of military action. Who do you think they're going to be rooting for in military action? Seriously. They want to be proven right. They want to be proven correct. They want to be proven that their ideology is the right ideology. They were very upset when Trump successfully bombed those nuclear sites in Iran. They were very upset when the Israelis defeated Iran militarily in 12 days. Very upset. Very upset. President may or may not touch on this tonight. I don't have the foggiest idea. I'm certainly not involved in making those decisions, nor would I expect to be. So we have an enemy without and an enemy within. And it's not just Mandami and Islamists. It's the neo-fascists and isolationists, as well as the Marxists. They're a cabal. The AOCs and the Bernie Sanders, the Talibs and the Mandamis, and then the Carlsons and the Bannons and their ilk. Mandami. This Friday, where an imam called for killing of infidels, that would be you and me, killing of non-believers. This is a mosque, out of all the mosques, where Mandami chooses to go and has gone before. Hat tip memory, I tell you, you should bookmark this site, memri.org, memri.org. And here's what he had to say at the mosque. Cut 3, go.
Last Ramadan, I was with many of you here at the procession on the martyrdom anniversary of Imam Ali, alayhi salam. It is a privilege to be here with you once again. I stand before you as the first Muslim mayor in our city's history, and this year as the first Jummah that I have attended in that new position. And to do so together, it is a reminder that in this month of Ramadan, as we find moments of reflection, of recommitment, moments of community, that we always do so together. And it is together that I am thankful to be here today, and I'm thankful to have the opportunity to lead our city. Assalamu alaikum.
I have no idea what he said there. Does anybody? It's in English, I get that. Do so together, and so the city's more divided than ever before. Just so you know, hate crimes against Jews are through the roof. Through the roof. Attacks on the cops are through the roof. He's not going to prosecute those who assaulted cops with snowballs the other day. He humiliated the NYPD. I don't know why the commissioner doesn't resign. Just say, you know what, I resign in protest. I don't know what her deal is. I really don't. Just awful. Absolutely awful. Not only that, on top of being a Marxist Islamist, a massive tax increaser, apparently they're the summon to prayer 5 times a day is being played throughout the city, Mr. Producer. Have you heard about that? Now, everybody knows what time to pray if you're Muslim. So why do you do that? You do that to show power and control. That's why you do it. In a non-Muslim majority city, you do that for that reason. That's why you do it. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I think the briefing that the so-called 8 in Congress received today was quite eye-opening to them. Schumer's come out, Mark Warner, the vice chair of the Senate Intel Committee, they've all come out, this gang of 8. They were briefed by Rubio and CIA Director Ratcliffe on Iran. And Warner said it's an extraordinary and serious time. I think it's incumbent upon the president to make the case what our country's goals are, what our counter interests are, and how we're going to protect American interests and the reason. Maybe we'll hear that tonight, but if we don't hear it tonight, we need to hear it very, very soon. Schumer also came out and said it's a very serious matter and the president needs to make the case. You see, because the left does not want us to defend ourselves. The left is trying to conquer us, the left being the Marxists and the Islamists. And they were given information, and I suspect about the ballistic missiles that the Iranians are building with chemical and biological elements in the warheads now. And that they are, in fact, back with the nuclear weapons. And I think all this information was laid out by Rubio and Ratcliffe and more to these Democrats. And apart from a Bernie Sanders or something like that, as bad as Warner and Schumer, and they are horrific, it must have been one hell of a briefing. Because they didn't come out of there and say, I didn't hear anything. You know how they didn't say that. They said this is very serious. Very serious. And it is very serious. To keep saying I believe in peace and no more wars, you got to be an idiot. Because you'll get the opposite. The absolute opposite. The president knows what's going on. He's briefed hourly. And so the people who are at the White House and the Pentagon or intelligence agencies, wherever they are, leaking to try and limit his options, to try and prevent him from making a military decision, are the worst kind of traitors. They're just traitors. And I would encourage the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to direct the Federal Bureau of Investigation to find out who they are. If they're people who are elected, if they're people who've been appointed, if they're people in the bureaucracy, we need to know who they are. They have violated the Espionage Act at the highest levels of our government in the face of this enemy. We need to know who they are, who they've talked to, their text messages, their phone calls, their emails, their meeting agenda, their schedules. It's not hard to find out. I used to be involved in these kinds of investigations. But they need to be triggered. They need to take place. And let the chips fall where they may. Donald Trump is not a warmonger. If he decides military action has to be taken, the military action has to be taken. The warmongers are the enemy. The Islamists and the communists, they're the warmongers. They're the ones building weapons to destroy, not our military, to destroy our cities, our citizenry. Weapons that will destroy you. That's the goal. You see how Putin fights. What China's up to is unbelievable in terms of its military capabilities and in record time. And what Iran is doing, again, as Rich Goldberg pointed out, this is a terrorist organization that's taking control of a country. It's not even a government. And they use murder and rape and torture and imprisonment, and they are helped by the Chinese, by the Russians, by the North Koreans and others. And internally, the Muslim Brotherhood, funded primarily by Qatar, for God's sakes, and its related organizations, exist now throughout the United States. Hamas's CARE exists throughout the United States. They're using our courts. They're using our voting and political system. They're using our media. They're using our zoning laws. As I've said from day one, since I've been behind this microphone, our enemy uses our liberty to destroy our liberty. That's what they're doing. Wait till you hear about Wiley, Texas, and what took place there and is taking place there. Texas, for God's sakes. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Tommy Robinson is a citizen journalist and author, free speech activist over in Britain, who was thrown in prison, I think, about 7 months for speaking. He's been taking on this Islamist wave in Britain, been warning the United States literally for years. For years. And he'd come to the United States to warn we, the people of the United States. And I want to give him the largest platform he'll probably have, which is this one. I mentioned Wylie, Texas, W-Y-L-I-E. I assume that's how it's pronounced. If not, I've never been there. But it's appalling. It sounds like it's not in a terribly populated town. Father at a Wylie Independent School District Board meeting on February 2nd. Listen to this. Just listen to this. All you parents out there and grandparents, listen to this. Cut 4, go.
America is a Christian nation.
Amen.
The principal, 1 year ago, the principal on the same day, World Hijab Day, wore that hijab and said she loved it, all caps. 1 year to the day later, on World Hijab Day, Sunday, Monday hits, they're putting out girls in Sharia. They're passing out Sharia pamphlets, hijabs, Qurans, understanding Islam, understanding Sharia. Sharia treats half of this room like and these women are not. This is not a Muslim nation. This is a Christian nation. That principal knew what she was doing, and I am not believing that was one or two people at that front desk. Fire the principal. You tell the parents, don't go online to get information, but what did they get online? Marco told the truth. That's where they got the information, and you did. Online. Tell them that's not to go there. This was dawah. Muslim proselytizing. Dawah. It's like me as a Christian going into a school and witnessing to these kids. You want me to do that? Let's go.
You know what's particularly appalling as I listen to this very righteous man? It's funny when the secularists, the Marxists, the Democrats talk about separation of church and state. You've heard that phrase over again. The Ten Commandments, which truly is the law, the central, the core law, belief system, handed to Moses by God, passed on to the Jewish people, passed on and through the Christian people and so forth. You can't even have a display of the Ten Commandments in a school. You can't have silent prayer in a school. All of this has been expunged from the classroom. And now all these Islamists show up over the last 10 or 15 years, and we have principals slipping Korans or pamphlets on Sharia law into little baggies, teaching them about World Hijab Day and so forth. Prayers taking place. The problem is we're weak. Not you and me. I'm not talking about we, the American people. Our institutions, our so-called ruling class, whether it's at the local level with school boards and county commissioners or mayors and councils, they're weak. Zoning boards, weak. Intimidated. Or worse, believers. You have the same at the state level, at the national level, not with Trump, but Many congressmen, including Republicans. But the problem is the way our country works, the way our federalist system works, we have many little towns and big cities too. And they have a lot of sovereignty in terms of zoning and teaching. And the Islamist scholars and ideologues, they figured that out a long time ago. So they go into these zoning board meetings, they go into these school board meetings. I can tell you in Loudoun County, they show up at these school board meetings, I'm told, en masse, every single time there's a school board meeting. They're heavily organized. People get intimidated, they get frightened. Or in the case of Democrats, that's their new constituency and they need those votes. And nobody wants to be called an Islamophobe, you know, a totally made-up term. And yet, if you truly follow Sharia law, you must destroy the Constitution. That's my point. You must destroy the Declaration. You must destroy individual liberty and free will. You must destroy all these things because that supplants Sharia, our law. Local, state, federal, constitutional. It supplants it. The ruling class is weak, and by that I mean look at these school boards and look at the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions, the two main unions and their affiliates, are radical left, Marxist unions. That's what they are. It's not like the cops and the firefighters or the plumbers or the No. Nothing at all like them. They're not the Teamsters. They are radical left. The education departments in our colleges and universities, radical left. So time and again, what we're seeing in Europe and now what we're seeing in the United States is this combination of radical left and Islamists. And the radical left embraces the Islamists. The Islamists votes for the radical left, and they know damn well they're voting for them in order to devour the institutions, then eventually get rid of them. Get rid of them. They don't matter. Like Khomeini did in Iran. Great alliance in the revolution with the radical leftists, with opposition parties and others against the Shah. They all joined together. They overthrew the government. Then Khomeini slaughtered them all. As the Khomeini today is slaughtering any opposition. This father, I want to salute him. I wish I knew his name. I don't know his name. God bless him. And it is a majority Christian nation. And we should be proud of that fact. I'm proud of that fact as a Jew. Because a majority Christian nation is a benevolent nation. It's a tolerant nation. And Christianity embraces the Judeo-Christian value system. And our founders set up this government, this entire society, as embracing the Judeo-Christian value system fused with the Enlightenment, which is why you have representative government, which is why you have limited government, which is why you have federalism, power sharing. Genius. We're the only country that was ever founded this way, intentionally. The only one. And our enemies know it. Do you know why it's harder to take down America than Europe? Anybody know? Does anybody know why? Because Europe is mostly secular. Despite all the churches, despite all the history, America has been the most religious of the big Western countries. So the Judeo-Christian values, beliefs, teachings, those traditions, those institutions have been a bulwark against Islamism. They've been a bulwark against secularism. The problem is when the Democrats take over and they take over our courts, the Ten Commandments are pushed out of the schools. Why the hell are the Ten Commandments pushed out of our schools? Because you can't teach religion, separation of church and state. That's not what it says. Why shouldn't we embrace our history? Our history includes Judeo-Christian values. It doesn't mean we force them on people. Jews don't force them on people. Christians don't force them on people. Of course, we can talk about it. Islam does. Which is exactly this father's point. Okay, you're proselytizing for Islam. It's called dawah. Dawah. You're handing this stuff out to our kids behind our backs. Well, let us proselytize and talk about Christianity. No, you can't do that. No. Well, then we lose. They win and we lose. They've got the teachers' unions. They win, we lose. They've got the college faculties. They win, we lose. They have the college administrators. They win, we lose. They've got the billions of dollars in oil money coming into our country, buying off weak politicians, buying off lawyers and law firms, buying off businessmen. They figure, and rightly, I am afraid, that they can use their money to buy anyone and anything. I've joked here behind this microphone, I would be a billionaire if they thought they could buy me, Mr. Producer. Never going to happen. Never, ever going to happen. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. Okay, well, the Democrats are good at being drama queens. They're not very good at much else. They destroy things. You know what's interesting about this as I think about it? When you look in the Middle East, do the Palestinians ever build anything? No, they destroy things. Well, that's not true. Tunnels. They're good at tunnels. They'd probably be great at building subway systems. I'm just guessing. But you've got several million Palestinians. They get billions and billions and billions of dollars from the UN and the EU, from communist regimes. They've got billionaires who run the damn thing, about 10 of them, multi-billionaires. But they keep refugee camps because they're the biggest propaganda opportunity that they have. And but what's been done for science or technology or medicine or anything of the kind? Nothing. Zero. Because it's a fake identity, Palestinians, invented in 1965 by an Egyptian by the name of Arafat. Arafat was never, quote-unquote, a Palestinian. He was an Egyptian. And people explain how this whole thing was created by the Soviet Union because Israel refused to align itself with Russia, the Soviet Union, and aligned itself with the United States. There was a great tug of war that was going on early on. I also think about what people say. Look at what we give to the Israelis. You know, it's interesting. Let's turn that around just for a moment. We spend tens of billions of dollars to protect ourselves from Islamist terrorists. We worry about terrorists coming into this country. They're not coming from Israel, are they? They're coming from throughout the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, funded by Qatar, coming out of Egypt, coming out of Iran, coming out of Syria. They're not coming out of Israel. We give those countries billions and billions in advanced weaponry. The Israelis take our weaponry, they literally upgrade it, and then they give the technology to Lockheed Martin or whatever the company is. Go ahead and look at it. Read it on the internet. They take the F-35, they make it a long-distance fighter, jet fighter, and with heavier armaments. And the CEO at Lockheed Martin, or whatever the company was, maybe it was General Dynamics, I don't remember, they said, that is absolute genius. Worth billions and billions of dollars. But look, I'm just one voice. I'm just one voice. There's a whole gaggle of big mouths out there and others. I'm sure they drown me out. We have a wonderful relationship, America and Israel. Wonderful. That can't be said with any Arab country. None. We always have to look over our shoulder. We always have to prepare for the terrorists that come out of those countries. Saudi Arabia, 9/11. Qatar, 9/11. Egypt, Muslim Brotherhood. That spawned what? Al-Qaeda. Hamas, Islamic Jihad. Looking over our shoulder. Now, Turkey. Really, modern Turkey founded by Ataturk? Well, they've destroyed him and everything about it. Another Islamist-run regime. National Socialist Islamist regime, by the way. So tonight, you're going to see the State of the Union address right after the program, and you're going to see the Democrats making a spectacle as they believe they should control the House and the Senate and the presidency, as they are plotting and scheming to do exactly that, with more congressional districts, more illegal aliens, making sure voter fraud does take place because they don't want voter ID, counting on the Supreme Court, especially the weak, phony conservatives, of which there are 2 or 3, depending on the issue, to give them their birthright citizenship. Oh, yes. And here's Hakeem Jeffries today, the wannabe Speaker of the House, because he's so smart and he's got so many great ideas, the so-called wannabe Speaker of the House. Cut 5, go.
For those who choose to attend, how would you like to see them behave?
Well, listen, it's my expectation that members who choose to attend will be there in silent defiance, of course, skeptical of the remarks that the president is going to try to deliver in terms of his spin.
There you go. And the others won't be there, he said. They'll be out at another event. So he said that's his expectation. No, that's his directive. That's his order. And when the order goes out from the top of the Democrat Party pyramid, they all follow like lemmings. They're all clicking their heels. Clicking their heels. Here is Representative Angie Craig, Democrat, Minnesota. They have a press conference telling you how they're going to be defiant. Cut 6, go.
And I'll just end with this. I would rather stick forks in my eyes than be here tonight to listen to Donald Trump talk about the State of the Union.
I have a better idea. Why don't you stick a sock in your big mouth? You disrespectful kook. I'm so sick of these people who have no class and no respect for these institutions. I'll be right back. You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk.
The voice of sanity in an insane world. The Mark Levin Show. Call him now at 877-381-3811.
Hello, everybody. So I see our friends have a clock when the State of the Union begins. You say that started this morning, Mr. Producer? 1 hour, 26 minutes, and 21 seconds. To be clear. Wow. And, there's a Republican primary for the Senate in Texas. And one of the candidates, I'm not going to get involved in it, wanted to come on the program to talk about Islamism and what they're doing and so forth and so on, and I didn't accept because I don't want to get involved in that primary, to be perfectly honest with you. There's two conservatives, there's one establishment guy, and I'm just thinking, I don't want to put my finger on that scale because I don't know what's what. When I know, I know. When it's clear cut, I know. But that's the point. All right, the Speaker of the House responding to all these drama queens who are going to be boycotting the State of the Union. Just as well, had this to say, cut 7, go.
Democrats, meanwhile, are going to host, count them, 5 separate counter events, rallies of some sort, they call them, in lieu of tonight's address. For all of these theatrics, it doesn't matter how many little gatherings they have or where they stand or how high the volume is on the microphones. They have nothing to offer, nothing but their TDS agenda, the Trump derangement syndrome, and it's on full display. All they can say, all they can tell you about is how they oppose President Trump and thwart his agenda and shut down the government and protest everything from the president's joint address to basic immigration enforcement. And they obstruct any meaningful progress for the sake of obstruction. It's the same tired playbook that they've run for a decade now. It's shameful that they would boycott an address. We don't do that. Republicans don't do that. It doesn't matter if there's a president from the opposing party. We don't skip out. Our constituents want and need us to be here. Every member of this House represents over 750,000 people. They're disenfranchised if you're not sitting in the seat to be a part of the role and the responsibility of Congress. I think it's shameful.
But something he said was really very, very important. That they do this now all the time. You see, ladies and gentlemen, they don't care about the country. They don't have anything to offer but more government that empowers them. Vote for us, we'll change the Supreme Court. Vote for us, we'll change the citizenry. Vote for us, we'll change the economic system. Vote for us, we'll undermine the cops, federal, state, and local. Vote for us, we'll put activists on the Supreme Court. They don't say that, but that's what they are. So they want to destroy what is, the institutions that exist. Even just showing up for a speech is too much for them. Too much. And too much for their base, which is increasingly radical. I have to be honest, increasingly made up of foreigners. That's their base. And by the way, I love foreigners who are here legally, assimilate, and are patriotic, and I meet a lot of them. Those aren't the foreigners I'm talking about. No. I'm talking about those who come to change the country. Those who hate the country. They're all Democrats. They all vote Democrat. They don't vote Republican. And then we get this Marxist line from Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, the Trump economy works for billionaires, and they just repeat this stuff. Now, they're smart enough, not smart, but smart enough to know that that's BS. But they also know that repetition, backed by the media, works. So here's Elizabeth Warren yesterday on CNN. Cut 8, go.
I will be there. And I will be there as he tries to put a spin on this economy, a happy face on an economy where he promised for an entire year when he was running for president, he would lower costs on day one. And here we sit on day 400. Cost of groceries is up.
Now, here's the deal. What he's done is he's increased take-home pay by reducing inflation. So several thousands of dollars worth per family. What he's done is he's lowered gasoline prices to the lowest level in over 4 years. And many food products, the price is down on meat, on sugar, on salt, and I could go through many others. Some it's not, because he's not able to control the whole supply chain and, from the field to the supermarket. But he's done an enormous amount. He's gotten the interest rates down despite the resistance from the chairman of the Fed. The stock markets are record high. That's not for just billionaires. That's for anybody who's got a pension, an IRA, a 401k. You look at it, you see it's way up. That's good for you and for employment and for investment and for capital growth and expanding your facilities. That's all good. It's not bad. Of course, the Marxists and the Democrat Party think it's all horrible. I remember when the economy was chugging like never before under Reagan. Massively exploding growth. And they were talking about the billionaires and depression. Same thing. Meanwhile, they created the inflation situation. They drove up prices. They created scarcity. Look what they're doing in New York. They got the man they wanted, the left, a Marxist Islamist, right away with the massive increase in property taxes and rents and all the rest of it. You can't even compare New York to Florida, California to Florida, Illinois to Florida. There's no comparison. The people in Florida have a freer life, a more affordable life. Well, how about Massachusetts, where Elizabeth Warren comes from? It's in a very expensive state with high taxes, high housing costs. And we can go on and on. Elizabeth Warren. Tax cuts for billionaires. Let me ask you a question. Why would anybody even want to just have tax cuts for billionaires? If you're trying to get elected to office or get your party elected in a midterm, it doesn't even make any sense. If you're not redistributing wealth, if you're not punitive in your taxes, they'll just say tax cuts for billionaires. If you have tax cuts across the board, as Reagan did and Trump has, they'll say tax cuts for billionaires. They won't mention no tax on tips, no tax, in many cases, on Social Security, no tax on overtime, no tax if you're trying to help a family member who is an extremist. What about all of that? What about tax deductions coming in the near future for auto loans? The interest on auto loans. That's right. You enjoying your health care expenses? You can thank Obama and the Democrats. Obamacare drove up the cost of health care like never before in American history. Never before. And they say the answer is to subsidize it. And when you subsidize it, you get more of it, and it becomes less and less and less affordable. A government that is in trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. The Democrats have no answers. Now, why is that, America? Because they're not driven by economics. They're driven by ideology. And they're driven by a radical left ideology, an anti-capitalist, anti-individual liberty ideology. More and more centralization of power, centralization of government, taking wealth from the private sector, giving it to the bureaucracy, regulating every aspect of business, of your life. Well, you're not going to get growth. This is sort of neo-Marxism, or as I wrote a whole book, American Marxism. It's a big problem. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know what Pure Talk's favorite holiday is? President's Day. Because they believe wireless service should only cost you a couple of presidents. Just a Jackson and a Lincoln, to be exact. For $25 a month, Pure Talk gives you unlimited talk, text, plenty of data. Now compare that to big wireless. They'd rather celebrate Benjamin Franklin Day so they can charge your family hundreds every month, and he wasn't even a president. That's not right. You deserve better. Pure Talk is an American wireless company that supports our veterans and invests in a U.S.-only customer service team. When you call, you're talking to someone right here at home. Pure Talk uses the same towers as the big carriers, so enjoy superior 5G coverage without the inflated price. Just $25 a month for talk, text, plenty of data, no contract, no cancellation fee. Don't wait any longer, folks. Go to puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin. You'll get 50% off your first month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin to make the switch to Pure Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to encourage you to check out today's video podcast. I think it's, of the four that I've done so far, I believe it's the most important. And maybe you can get sort of in the hang of doing this. Maybe you can't do it all the time, but we are only doing it 3 days a week for about 45 minutes each time. And you go to YouTube, and you can subscribe there. It's absolutely free. In fact, you don't even have to subscribe. You can just view it there. And Rumble, which has been wonderful to us, you can go there and follow us and view it there. I just want to encourage you to go ahead and do that because it's a very, very important episode. And I did it this morning. It takes time to get production all set, and then we put it out as quickly as we can by noon. So it's basically been in the can for about an hour, and then we put it up at noon, so it's really as live as it can be. And please give it a look and tell other people, too. It's called Liberty's Voice. You go to YouTube, Liberty's Voice. You go to Rumble, Liberty's Voice. We will be adding additional sites down the road soon. But right now, I want to particularly thank Rumble for what they've been doing. YouTube. Again, Liberty's Voice at Rumble, Liberty's Voice at YouTube. And I get into the history. Well, I know, but if they just type in a Liberty's Voice, they'll find it. So I'm just saying, Mr. Producer is very accurate. He's saying at Mark Levin Show on Rumble. But you can do at Mark Levin Show on Rumble, but Liberty's Voice, you'll be able to find it. You can find it on our mothership website, marklevinshow.com. We have all the links there. We have all the links, by the way, on our social sites. So if you go, for instance, to X, there's the link directly to Rumble and to YouTube. So I want to encourage you to do it. We want to build a juggernaut of an audience in our video podcast, overlay it with our radio audience, and ultimately with our TV audience, too. So this is part of the activism we talk about, the mission that we talk about, because we're about saving this country from all these forces that are about killing us. Killing the country, I should say. It's very, very important. So I hope you'll check it out. And there's a lot of tremendously interesting information that I dug up about Benedict Arnold, about Father Coughlin, about Tucker Carlson. And I wrap it with a big red bow. At least you're going to be intrigued by it, right? At least you're going to have being inquisitive about it. But you're smart in this audience. It's the most pro-American, I think, certainly one of them, I should say, pro-American video podcasts out there. All the others are tearing down the country and doing these other things that are just disgusting. I do not drop F-bombs. I don't curse at all. And I don't show skin. No facelifts. No hairdos, obviously. And what else? I don't smoke pot. I don't bring on Nazis. I would never bring on like a Candace Owens, a Bannon, a Gates, a Kelly, of course, a Carlson. We'll leave them to their own designs. But I do this for you. I do it for you. I don't do it for hits. I don't do it for numbers. I don't need to do any of that. But I want to do it so we can build the biggest audience possible and get our movement all fired up for the midterm elections. So I hope you'll participate. We need your participation. So it's at Rumble, at Mark Levin Show, but it's called Liberty's Voice. And at YouTube, again, Liberty's Voice. And we link to it on my social sites. It's there on X. It's all over all my social sites. And you can join us there. Next hour, we're going to have Tommy Robinson on. Those of you who are familiar with him and track him in the media and so forth, he's really fantastic, very brave young man. A citizen journalist, author, free speech activist. He was thrown in prison for a little period. He's going to come on a few minutes after 8. He's been fighting this wave of Islamists coming from the Middle East and elsewhere into Europe, particularly into his home country of Britain. And he's here for a period of time to warn Americans. He says it's happening right here in America. And before it gets out of control like it has in Britain and France and really all of Europe, except for maybe Hungary and Denmark, but that's about it. He's warning us, we, the American people, and I thought you should hear from him. You can also visit trfilms.co.uk to find his documentaries. I'll fill you all in next hour. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, I first heard of Tommy Robinson a few years back. I didn't really know much about him. People would say, oh, he's a rabble-rouser. So that got my attention. I guess I am, too, in some ways. But over the course of the last few years, I've been watching him. I've been watching what he's posted. I've been watching him go to places like Israel. Now he's in the United States. And he has been prescient. He has been out there with a clarion call. And basically his message today, and I'm going to let him speak most of the time, is don't turn into Britain. Don't turn into Europe. Islamism will destroy your country from within, and you need to seal your borders. Tommy Robinson, it's a great honor. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, Mark. I'm blessed to be in the United States of America. I've enjoyed my first 4 days, and yeah, I'm good. I come with a warning to America.
And what is the warning?
The warning is, I only wish someone come to my hometown 40 years ago, 30 years ago, and told us this is what's going to happen and this is how it's going to happen. Now, what I'm talking about is not what I've read in a book. It's life experience. I was born in 1982 in a town 30 miles north of London. When I was born, there was one mosque. There's now 45. White English are a minority. My hometown has been named by the CIA as the epicenter of terrorist activity for Europe. Some of the kids I grew up with went to fight for ISIS. Many of them have ended up in prison for terrorism charges. I've experienced we're one of the most diverse towns in Europe, so I know the good and the bad. And our town was always divided by religious lines, not racial lines. We had a Muslim playground and a non-Muslim playground. We didn't create that. So I've witnessed all different cultures that come. My mum came as an immigrant. She was from Ireland. Many of my friends come from St. Lucia, Jamaica, Bulgaria, Italy. So we're all the sons of immigrants in Luton, and everyone gets on fine. Every community is assimilated. The Sikhs come, the Hindus come. They've all worked hard. They've all integrated. They've become part of British society. But there's one section of a community that just refuses to assimilate or integrate at all. And not just that, there's a level of hostility which I never understood. Growing up, I just looked in and I couldn't work it out. It was the Pakistani community. It was only when I really got my head into Islam and the doctrine of Islam and the teachings of Muhammad that I started putting it together like a jigsaw. So I'd seen so much. I'd obviously seen what's now called grooming. In the UK, they call it the grooming scandal. It's actually rape jihad. It's actually groups of Muslim men who kidnap, torture and murder many times young English girls. And this is the darkest stain on British history. And if I go through some of the details from these cases, people would not believe it. And when I started my activism in 2009, and I heard your introduction where people call me a rabble-rouser, look, I'm not polished in education. I didn't go to a posh school. I'm from one of the roughest towns in Britain. I've come from the streets. But because of that upbringing, I've experienced that life. I've seen it. I know what it's like. So with regards to the grooming gang scandal, when I started talking about this in 2009, I started an organisation called the English Defence League, and it filled with young men. You have to realise there was never going to be female school teachers or doctors that took on militant Islam in the UK. And when I was young back then, and we took to the streets in our thousands, and we hit the city centres, and we were demanding, it was a cry for help, we were demanding action against the rape of a generation of our daughters. Now, in 2014, it all fell down. The cards started to fall. We'd been screaming about it for 4 years. I'd been slandered. I'd been attacked. I faced the full weight of the British state trying to crush me, to break me, prison sentences, all because, and this is when you realise the scale of the problem, all because those in authorities, there was a conspiracy of silence from police leaders, religious leaders, political leaders, that actually facilitated and accommodated the rape of a generation of British girls. The numbers are horrifying. And I knew it happened in my town. And when I started a national organisation, I started finding it was happening in every town. So we started highlighting it. And the last thing any of those in power wanted was anyone knowing what had happened. Because what happened is the consequence of open border mass immigration. And America, brace yourself, because your borders for the last 10 years, or last 8 years, when they were open, which wasn't done by mistake, when your borders were open, they weren't open to Hispanic immigration. It wasn't Mexicans coming through your border. It was Eritreans, it was Pakistanis, it was Somalis, it was Afghanis, it was Syrians. And this is a whole different ballgame. So the seeds have already been planted in the United States for the destruction of the United States. And you need to learn and look at the failure in Britain, in Germany, in Europe. And no one needs to take my opinion for it. The numbers speak for themselves. Muslim men make up 3% of the British population. They're responsible for 90% of the groups of men that rape young children. 30% of the men convicted are called Mohammed. The rape rate in Sweden, 63% of those convicted of rape are Muslim men. They only make up 10% or so of the population. In Paris, 77% of the rapes, Muslims. If we look in Germany opened their borders to Syria. From 2017 to 2022, rapes went up 45%. Now, last year, 11% of the rapes were committed by Syrian nationals. This is in Germany. In the UK in 2003, 8,800 people were raped. Now it's 88,000. Now, these sort of numbers and these sort of statistics, if America's willing to sacrifice its daughters, its mums, its sisters, in order to say they're a better nation for diversity, then allow your women to be raped as well. Because that's what's happened in our country. That doesn't mean every Muslim is bad, but obviously I've become the vocal voice for this crime. It had been hidden for 30 years. We made it. We made them start looking at it. We brought it to the world's attention. And for that, obviously, my government hate me. For that, obviously, I've faced relentless persecution. I expected, when all this started, I expected the violence from the Islamic community. I knew the consequence of talking about these problems on the street level. But what I wasn't ready for was the full weight of the British state to come down, crushing down on me as a British citizen. And I then quickly realised that the country I live in is a very different country to the country I thought I lived in. I grew up thinking, well, we created the Magna Carta. We're the land of, we exported our democracy and our free speech. We live in a post-free speech era. We have no free speech. 12,000 people were arrested last year for social media posts in Britain. It was only 800 were arrested in China, in Russia. So that's a brief introduction. I've spent my life now, I've dedicated my life to raising awareness and speaking about the issues that no one wants to speak about. But fast forward from when I started in 2009, when I was hated, to now where we're at in 2026, I've been proven right on every point. People look at me very differently now, thankfully.
All right, before we take a break, we're on with Tommy Robinson. I really want you to follow this gentleman. Where do people go if they want to find out your reporting or your documentaries?
My documentaries are at trfilms.co.uk, TR Films. There you'll see all my documentaries. I've done a 5-part series on the rape gangs. I've exposed the BBC and the corruption within the BBC. I've exposed Media Matters in your country. We have a group called Hope Not Hate. I've exposed how they are just an arm of the British state. A totalitarian state has weapons. It has the media, it has the judiciary, and they're being used as weapons against us. So you can follow me at T Robinson New Era on X, or you can follow me, now I'm back on YouTube because I was censored for so long. I'm back on there, Tommy Robinson Online.
Mr. Producer, let's put that on our sites so the people that go to the sites will have that and will follow Tommy Robinson. We're going to take a brief break, Tommy. I want to get back and get into more of this because the American people are waking up to this. At least a lot of us are. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Our guest is Tommy Robinson. I think you really admire this gentleman. Citizen journalist, author, free speech activist. You can go to trfilms.co.uk, find his documentaries there, and we're posting them on my social sites. Tommy, you spent a little while in Israel. What caused you to go to Israel?
So from when I first started my activism, actually, just growing up in Luton, I grew up within the Muslim community, so at school I heard a lot of hate towards Jews. I'd seen a lot of stuff, heard a lot of stuff. When I started the English Defence League, I obviously looked at the Israeli situation, and the way Israel is surrounded by terrorists and jihadists, so are we in England, so was I at Luton, in Luton. So I understood the mindset of the jihadists. I looked into them after the Beslan school massacre, I really went down the rabbit hole and started looking into what made the Beslan school massacre, so people understand. The school was taken over by Chechen terrorists, and then when the pupils were inside, the parents were all outside. And I can still see this visual now. And then they started massacring and killing the kids inside, the terrorists did. And then the parents were all on their knees screaming as they're hearing the kids getting killed. And that made me go down a rabbit hole where I started wanting to know how this wasn't one crazy individual. This was a large group of people. This was an ideology. Then I started understanding the Islamic Jihad ideology, and I haven't stopped looking since that day. And that was my wake-up call. So with Israel, I understood Hamas, I understood Hezbollah, I understood these groups and how they think. I'd seen it my whole life. As I said, Luton's the epicenter of terrorist activity for Europe. So I went to Israel asking questions in 2014. I thought, I don't want to be ignorant about this. Obviously, I speak a lot about Islam. I know the Quran. I know it inside out. So I've done my research on this subject. And I started talking about Palestine and Israel. So I thought, it's a bit ignorant of me if I talk about it and I don't visit. So I went in 2014 for the first time. And when I went there, I paid young Arab Muslims. So obviously, I risked my life because I was probably one of the most prominent figures against Islam in Europe. And I paid young Arab Muslims, and they took me to a Fatah-controlled refugee camp in Bethlehem. I spent time travelling the whole of Israel at this time, asking questions. But when I went to the Fatah-controlled refugee camp, I'm walking through the refugee camp with these Muslim Arabs. They don't know who I am, and I'm asking them questions. And what I expected was the total opposite. I said, "Who's oppressing you?" And I'm expecting Israel. And they said, "The Palestinian Authority." And I said, "What do you mean? Who's the Palestinian Authority?" And they explained who's in control of them, which was the Palestinian Authority. And then there's pictures of all these terrorists on the murals of the terrorists on the side of the houses, because all of these terrorists have left this refugee camp. And then he said she went and blew up a bus. She was a suicide bomber on a bus. This person went on a stabbing attack. And all their pictures are on the sides of the houses, because this is the houses that they lived in and they come from. And they explained that the Palestinian Authority rewards and pays these people for the rest of their life. So I then looked at it very differently, and I was with my friend who's we're both from a poor background in Luton, and so many people say poverty leads to extremism, poverty and things like this. And as I'm walking around this refugee camp, this Muslim Arab refugees, he said, I'm a fourth generation refugee. My children will be fifth and theirs will be sixth. We will never leave this camp because it benefits the Palestinian Authority to have us here. He said, and the only way you leave this camp is if you go stab an Israeli. So then I said, so hold on. So if someone leaves this camp, if you're stuck on this camp of poverty, there's no park, there's nothing here. If you're stuck on here and you want to go and kill a Jew, you get rewarded. And he corrected me. He said, no, not kill a Jew, kill an Israeli. I said, what do you mean? So they can kill a Muslim? They said, kill an Israeli, you get the reward. So they just have to go and kill any Israeli. And then they get financially rewarded for the rest of their life. So I went and started looking at the Palestinian Authority. And I saw that they're funded by the British taxpayer, me. And I couldn't believe this. This is pay to slay. So we are paying, and I couldn't believe I didn't know this. So these terrorists are leaving, and many of them are leaving and committing jihad and committing terrorism, but they're getting rewarded and paid for. So I saw this, and then I kept asking every Arab I met. So I didn't realise 2 million Muslims live in Israel. I didn't realise that. So as I'm in Israel, I'm speaking to Muslims, and we're on the Golan Heights, and bombs are going off in Syria at the time. And I approached this Muslim lad, and I said, listen, what's it like living here? And he said, what do you mean? I said, what's it like for you? You're a Muslim, you're living in the state of Israel. He said, it's brilliant. I said, but what do you mean it's brilliant? Do you face oppression? Do you face it? And he looked over where the bombs were going off, and he said, do you think I want to live over there? He said, I pray 5 times a day, mate. He said, I have a great life in Israel. So everything I thought I knew, things were the opposite. Yeah, doesn't mean things are great, because and I went and asked questions and I spent time with Jews as well. I spent time with a Jewish lady who was stabbed 13 times with a machete, chopped to pieces in a terrorist attack. So I just toured Israel, asking lots of questions. And what I found then, and what I'd seen in the UK, which is where I believe Israel are losing the battle, because and they've been asleep. He's about to hear in groups like this. They're terrorist organisations. They're now prescribed, but they got prescribed after October 7th. But I don't know why it took to October 7th. But these groups have been every Islamic society of every university in Britain and in the West. And then Qatar and Iranian money is funneling into these universities. So when October 7th happened, obviously everyone saw the level of hatred that was so confident, literally instantly the next day, so confident to take over entire universities, to take over every Western capital city, to walk through the streets and promote so much hate. And I always hear, and I think, so I've watched in Britain and I've seen the hatred and I've listened to it, and it's got to a level now, a disgusting level. And so after October 7th, I started speaking out and saying that this hatred can't be tolerated. And I've obviously, from the start of the English Defence League, I understood where Israel is. I understood what surrounds it. I looked at the Christian populations in Syria, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and I looked at if you want to call it a genocide, that's what we should be calling it a genocide, is the reduction in the Christian population to nearly zero in most of those countries. And then I looked at Israel, the only place where the Christian population has grown in the Middle East. The only place where you have freedom as a minority in the Middle East. The only place. So when I hear all the apartheid state, but then I went and visited to ask all these questions. So I've had a lot of flack, if I'm honest. It would have been easy for me not to speak about these issues. It would have been easy for me because I just get accusations all the time. And what they've managed to do, like right now I'm in the United States. I've obviously been given a high-up clearance to enter this country because of my previous criminal convictions, but I'm still here. No one is saying I'm here working for America. There's no accusation I'm being paid by America. I visited the Polish parliament with members of government. No one says they were paying me. I visited Danish parliament. No one says they were paying me. I spoke out when India and Pakistan went into conflict, and I jumped straight to the defence of India and spoke out on that. No one said they are paying me. But what they've managed to do is they've managed to scare everyone into talking the truth about Israel or in any way siding with the Jewish community, because they throw the accusation that you're paid Zionist. And then even on the sense of Zionism, like I said, so what? Like, what is a Zionist? I believe in a homeland for the Jews. Well, shoot me down. Yes, I do. Yes, there's 55 Islamic nations. There's 55 Islamic nations. The Jews can have one. Okay, they're biblical, historical land. There's one land for the Jews. There's 55 Islamic nations. So obviously I just put things into perspective, and I also understand the hate, because I've seen the hate my whole life. So when I see Christians in America right now talking about a Muslim-Christian alliance, and you've got these Christians sitting there, or these right-wing commentators, who have never experienced what it's like to live around...
Let me slow you down a second, because we're going to take a hard break. This point you're ending on, I want to continue with after the break, Tommy. We have people in this country with big microphones and big mouths. And they're talking about how Christians have it great in Qatar and these Muslim countries and not in Israel, and just these horrendous things that they're saying. And I want to go through that with you, because you've been over there. You walk the streets. You've interviewed a lot of people. You are really an independent journalist. You're not a propagandist. And by the way, you're smart as hell. You don't have to be book learned to be smart as hell. You're smart as hell. We'll be right back with Tommy Robinson.
Mark the 10, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with Tommy Robinson, citizen journalist from Britain, really worldwide these days, author, free speech activist. If you want to check out his documentaries, you go to trfilms.co.uk, and you can find his documentaries. By the way, when you were in Israel, you met with the Prime Minister, no?
I was invited by Minister Chickley. I was invited by Minister Chickley, so I met many members of government, no.
And how about your own government? Do you get to meet many members of the parliament?
I don't know if you're aware of the level of fear and political correctness. When the crimes I was talking about earlier, the rape of a generation of our daughters, fear is paralysing, and self-censorship, and people are scared of losing jobs. And what it managed to do was paralyse an entire nation. One of the fiercest nations in the world and the fiercest men in the world were paralysed through fear. It's pretty embarrassing, really. And that level of fear is embedded within our parliamentarians, who are scared to upset the boat or upset Islam or cause offence. They're always worried about the Muslims rioting or violence coming from the Islamic community. So no, my government, who I've been at loggerheads with for so long, they've betrayed the people. They've totally betrayed all of us with their mass open border immigration. And the thing is, it's a duty of someone to warn the nation and its people of a danger. And the comment we were just having before about political commentators in your country, who aren't just not warning, but they're lying. They're acting like Islamic immigration is not going to be a problem to the United States of America. So the United States of America, we can look at Britain. We have 40,000 terrorists on the terror watch list. 3,000 of those terrorists cost £9 billion a year to monitor 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 40,000. We had 4 times as many British Muslims went to fight for ISIS in a 3-year period than have joined our military over a 50-year period. Okay? If you want to look at Germany, look at France, look at all the statistics and all the numbers, Islamic immigration can destroy. Winston Churchill said it. Islamic ideology has the power to bring Europe back to the Dark Ages. So Islam in a man is like rabies in a dog. That's actually one of the comments of what he said. So there's so many problems. It doesn't mean every Muslim is bad, because many of them are good. I've met many great Muslims. But Islam as an ideology and the power it has and the segregation and assimilation is a problem. So most politicians in my country have been absolute cowards. We're seeing a total change now in the last 24 months because courage is contagious, and the British public have risen in number like never before. Mark, about 2 years ago, what I did is I got together, and this is what America needs to do, and certainly your commentators on the right and the journalists on the right. I brought 15 of us together, and we spent 2 days locked away in a hotel, and I said, our culture is in danger. We're all recognising this, yeah? And the 15 I brought together were, whether you want to call them influencers, citizen journalists, we all have our own platforms and we all reach different demographics. So when we got together, we said, right, each one of us, over the next 2 days, we want to decide the most 5 important principles to us as a group. And then we want to start a cultural movement. Because if you change the culture, you change the politics. So we sat down and we come to an agreement between the 15 of us that free speech, preventing the sexual exploitation of young children, the rape gangs, Islam, mass immigration, and the LGBTQ plus mafia and the problems that are coming from it with the trans movement and all these things. So we can agree on this. Let's not talk about what we disagree on. Let's talk about what we agree on. And we say, if we agree on these points and we start making videos and we use our journalism and we start hitting on cultural issues, on political issues, then if we come in under one umbrella then overnight we can put out a message in the morning and we will reach the nation. Their censorship is not going to work anymore. Elon Musk has given us back a voice. He's given us back light at the end of the tunnel. He's picked us up and given this country hope. We have free speech. There's a platform to have this discussion. Let us reach the nation. So we brought those people together. We agreed, and then we have built now over 2 years that what I would describe as a cultural revolution happening in Britain. Our recent event on September 13th was the largest event in British history. Millions descended on our capital city. Something huge is happening. Alongside that huge cultural revolution is a Christian revival. America, I know there's an attack. We've had an attack on the church, attack on the family, attack on identity, attack on men, feminization of men. All these things play into one part. But the biggest danger is when we lost faith as a country. We lost that Christian culture. And what filled that void was communism, Marxism, Islamism, all these different ideas filled that void. And then you had a lost nation. And if you have men who do not know where they've come from, or their history, or their background, or any of their identities that made us the country, or the reason we were Great Britain instead of Britain, what made us that, if you don't understand where you've come from, you're not going to fight for it. And that's what they were breaking down successfully with mass immigration, all these different attacks. And they were creating a weak nation, a nation full of cowards, a nation full of people who cared about themselves, a selfish nation. So we seek to embed and rebuild community, and that's what we've done with a movement called the United Kingdom. As I said, our next event is on May 16th. 9 million people voted for Keir Starmer. I don't know if you've been watching. He's the most tyrannical leader we've ever had. He's the biggest failure we've ever had. He's actually a laughing stock on the world stage. But 9 million people voted for Keir Starmer. 20 million people didn't vote. In America, 86 million people didn't vote. Now, those 20 million people, that's us. Now, how do we get them politicised? How do we give them a sense of cultural identity? We want to electrify them, give them back that sense of identity and that sense of belief and that sense of pride. And that comes through culture and identity, not through politics. Most of them don't care about politics. I didn't, until I started my activism, I didn't care about politics. As a working class man, I weren't rich enough or poor enough for it to matter. I didn't care. I wasn't interested. We need to be interested. We need to make sure we are, because the Islamic community, they're political. They'll be voting in up towards 90%. No one's voting in our community. So that's what we seek to do. And my government obviously hate me for this. I've exposed so much. My documentaries, which I just shared you, I have embarrassed them time and time again. And each time they've tried to destroy me, most recently with my 18-month prison sentence for making a documentary, it's backfired.
All right, hold on right there. I want you to focus in on that. Tell everybody in the country here, you went to prison for what?
So I made a documentary. There was a story that went out on the news. It was a story about a Syrian refugee who they said was being racially bullied in a school. And this story went worldwide. CNN, it went Australia, it went everywhere. Now, I found out that this wasn't a true story. So I made a report saying you're being lied to about this story. I can't go into too many details because I'll go straight back to jail, yeah? But I made it into a film. And then when I went to court, they said I committed defamation. So when I went to court, I produced covert recordings where I had teacher after teacher from the kids' school saying that they were paid not to tell the truth. I got all the school records that proved everything I said was true. I had all of the evidence, and this story was far bigger than Tommy Robinson, because what my story showed was what I call the unholy alliance. The media, the judiciary, the police, all these left-wing organisations, they all come together to suppress the truth or to end people and attack people. You saw the weaponisation of the judiciary against Donald Trump. You've seen the way the judiciary stands down when Antifa are arrested, or they let violent criminals off, or they let them out because they're funded by George Soros. You've seen the weaponisation of your own judiciary. Well, I had all of the evidence in a documentary that proved that this story wasn't organically viral. In fact, the story that happened at the school was held for 5 weeks. They planned to make it viral. They done criminal record checks on the Syrian's family. The day after the criminal record checks come back, this story become global news. So it was created into global news to push an open border immigration policy that English people are racist and bad, and that Syrians are victims of this. And the truth was a total 360. So I produced all the evidence to a judge, and the judge listed everything that I showed him in covert recordings, and said if I ever release any of the information of this outside this courtroom, I'll get 2 years in prison. I then made it into a film, and at the second event of the United Kingdom, when we had 100,000 people in central London, and we had 1 million people watching live online, I released the film. I played the film, and I obviously knew it would end up in jail, but I thought I'd provoke them into the reaction because I wanted the world to see obviously, people, they call me a criminal. I've never been tried. I've got a long criminal record. I've never been tried by a jury. I've only ever been convicted for my activism, my work, my journalism, and they've lied and they've used the courts against me. So this film proved it, hands down. I released the film. They gave me an 18-month prison sentence. I spent 7 months on solitary confinement for making they didn't argue with what was in the film. They're not saying anything was wrong that was in the film. It's just that I had an order that I'm not allowed to show the public the film. Now, how many other injunctions are there like this? How many other people are being silenced like this? In fact, well, I know that Laura Loomer has an injunction like this. She can't tell you that. But I know in the United States of America, they've got her over a barrel. So I know that injunctions and lawfare, I know that CARE use lawfare, I know that these Islamic, well-funded, Qatari-funded, Iranian-funded, sponsored groups who have militias in our own countries, and the alliance between them and the left, which is there now for everyone to see. Now, anyone who looks in history, we've seen it in Iran, the left sided with the Marxists sided with the Islamists to topple the government. We've seen it in Lebanon. We've seen this before. It's dangerous. And what played out in all those countries is playing out now in the West. We're watching it. So America, when you voted for Donald Trump, which was to save America, it's far bigger than to save America. You voted for Donald Trump to save Western civilization. You have reignited a fire in all of our bellies. Everything that's happening now in Great Britain, there's a ripple coming out of the United States for free speech. To see J.D. Vance, to see Marco Rubio grilling the European Union, see him in Munich, warning them about our citizens, we know that we've got people fighting for us. We live in a totalitarian state. We live in a post-free speech era. We don't have firearms. We can't protect ourselves. I had the police come to me, the week before I come out here, the police come to me, said I've been named in this month's ISIS magazine to be killed. And when they come and warn me, there's recordings of this, when they come and warn me, what they're warning is, they want to kill you, we can't protect you, and you can't get a weapon to protect yourself, because if you do, you will face criminal prosecution. Well, if you wouldn't have let these terrorists back into my country, if you wouldn't have allowed this problem to get so out of control, I might feel safe. I don't feel safe now, and rather than the terrorists having to leave the country, our British citizens and citizens across Europe are having to flee their nations because our nations are no longer safe. And America needs to learn from it. Never let it happen and get ahead of the curve, because luckily you've got some brave politicians already coming together to speak about these issues, which it took us 30 years. You know, since Winston Churchill and Gladstone, William Gladstone held the Quran above his head in Parliament, and he said there'll never be peace on this earth so long as we have this book. Our military leaders and your military leaders, I wrote a book called Muhammad's Quran, Why Muslims Kill for Islam. And in that book, the term Islam is a religion of peace. Do you know, it was never said anywhere. I challenge anyone, try and find the term Islam is a religion of peace before George W. Bush. It was never said. So there was never a dispute about what Islam was. Islam was a warlike ideology. Muhammad was a warrior. It's never been a religion of peace. It never has been. So this lie, once told 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, it becomes true. If everyone's like, Islam's a religion of peace. No, it's not. Now, every leader's job is to warn the public. We have to warn the American public. We have to understand the difference between Muhammad and Jesus. We have to have this conversation. That doesn't mean we hate everyone. It has to be had. We can't just sit blindly and pretend it's not going to affect us, because it's going to affect everyone.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Have the whole nation hear you. And we're going to want to get you back even when you leave the United States, if that's possible. And keep posting.
I'm here for a little while, Mark. So I'm here for
Say that again?
I'm here for a while, mate. I'm in America for a little while. I'm gonna, and if anyone wants, I've got 4 books. Yeah, 4 books. You know my books. This is when you look at censorship. So my books were banned by Amazon. You can buy Hitler's book in the 14 different languages. Yes. But you couldn't buy Tommy Robinson's autobiography. But you can get them. You can get them at trbooks.co.uk. So anyone wants to hear my life story or hear any of that, then feel free to purchase my book.
Rich, put all that information on our sites where they can get his books too. Tommy, God bless. It's been a pleasure meeting you, my friend, and I'm sure we'll do this again.
Thanks very much, Mark. Cheers.
All right.
Have a good fight.
Take care of yourself. I love that guy. Is he not fantastic, Rich? He's fantastic. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Don't forget, folks, please check us out at Liberty's Voice, on YouTube and Rumble. It's all free. It's all brand new. And I think you're going to enjoy the information, the history, and its application to current times. You heard Tommy Robinson. He's fantastic. We agree on so much, as a matter of fact, and he's been through a lot. So please check that out. If you haven't, I think you're going to really like it. All right, Mr. Producer, we can tap into this, right? The State of the Union. They're gathering. The certain members of the Supreme Court just came in. Kavanaugh, Chief Justice, Barrett. I didn't get to see all of them. But this is always very interesting, I think, to me anyway. Oh, there is Kagan. So that's the four, only the four of them that I see.
Still here with Alex Gantatone.
There we are. Yeah, we don't need C-SPAN. I can do better than C-SPAN. You can see that there's not so much empty seats, but a little bit of gapping going on the Democrat side, but who really cares? Who really cares if none of them show up? If they're going to be rude and so forth and so on, that's enough for me. So the president's speech is supposed to be mostly, not exclusively, about domestic affairs, in particular the economy. And also, it's supposed to be fairly long. We'll be watching every minute of it. We'll talk together tomorrow about it. It's about to come up right now. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, the men and women in Iran, and you, the American people. Check it out. You're going to love the video podcast. That's right, Liberty's Voice on YouTube and Rumble. See you tomorrow.